Hi, this is chART, where we chat about art. This is part 2 of our Black Lives Matter episode. Today we'll be talking about Leonardo Drew and Hugh Hayden. Love you. Stay tuned.
We are Finn, Mara, Javier and Christy, and thank you for tuning in to listen to chART podcast. We are so stoked to have you here with us and that you take some time out of your day to hear us discuss any things that are happening in the art world. If you are a new listener and you are not subscribed yet, what are you doing? We would love to have you on board with the chART squad, so you get notified every time a new episode goes live. If you really love the podcast and got some value out of it, we would like to ask two things. One, if you could please give the podcast a 5-star rating and a review wherever you're listening to it. And two, if you can possibly consider taking a screenshot of it, listening to it on your device, throwing it up on your Instagram story, so people can find this content as well. Speaking of Instagram, feel free to follow us at chART Podcast to see more of us and send any questions you may have. We love hearing from you. Without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Let's roll.
Okay, fine.
So-
Obviously, go and watch part 1. What are you doing here?
Go and watch part 1 if you haven't
Go
already.
watch part 1. It'll
And then you
make
can come
sense.
back.
Seen or listened to part 1, then let's keep going.
Okay.
Okay.
So welcome to part 2. Welcome
We're
to part 2.
back.
We're back. Hey, hope everyone is doing fine. So my artist that I'm going to talk about is Leonardo Drew with a work called 215 that he made in 2019. So this work is very typical of him. He always makes these very explosive sculptures where he mostly uses wood and wood cuttings and just things that he finds on the street, and then colors it with different coatings and assembles it. His whole studio is basically a wood shop. And he is from Kentucky, where when he was younger, he drew action heroes and superheroes, Marvel, DC. And when he was 13, he got his first show with those drawings. And even the studio of DC and Marvel were interested. But for some reason, he then decided that he didn't want to draw anymore, and he completely dropped it. And he moved to New York. And he there discovered that he really likes to create explosive and emotional sculptures. And he therefore took a job at Christie's auction house in order for him to fund his future as a full-time artist. So then when he got enough money, he quit that job and he completely put himself into being an artist for 2 years. And that's really where he took off. And this work has been exhibited in a gallery Le Long in New York in 2019. And I really just like this work because it's this whole room that only just holds this, but it feels to me like it really suctions you in one point. But at the other hand, it also kind of feels like it's drawing itself in again, like pulling everything it has and kind of protecting it. I'm annoyed by the white column in the middle, but you know, I think if that wouldn't have been there, it would have been a better experience if you would have
Ironic
seen
that
it
the
live.
column is white.
Yes, as well.
Every
Nah.
single gallery space is white.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just
Do you really need that column though to support
I
the
think
building?
structurally they wouldn't have put it there. They didn't need it.
If I was him, I would risk the whole thing collapsing on my head just for a better view of it.
just going to that gallery as an artist, like, nah, I don't want this column here. I'm going to break it.
Yeah. Sorry for the roof.
Sorry if it collapses. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a link to. He didn't make it for a specific case like Basquiat did or Lubaina did. He's really just trying to visualize what he feels, and by using just scraps of wood, it's also like an homage to his childhood, where his parents were his dad was a
Carpenter.
right? He was a carpenter, and he helped his dad a lot. So that was why he really just got drawn into wood, and then the various colors to emphasize the creative explosion that he has. And to be honest, I just really like the vastness and the hugeness of that work, and at the same time, it's a very peaceful as well. So yeah, what do you guys think about it?
Why is it called number 215?
All his works are numbered, but they're not numbered in a
It
chronological
doesn't
order.
something.
No,
Right.
Oh, that's so
he
rogue.
just
It's kind of like Elmgreen and Draxa, isn't it?
yeah,
They're just random numbers.
just
I
so,
said,
What are the pieces of? And are some on the wall,
yeah.
and then
So
the other ones are all suspended?
no, they're all on the wall. They're not
Oh,
suspended.
okay.
So it's actually, if you would have looked at it, if it would be on the ground, he would stack them.
Oh, I see. I thought it was literally like maybe
Hanging.
hanging in front, and
No,
But
it's completely
okay,
mounted
fine.
on the wall.
so it's like 3-dimensional on
Yeah.
the wall kind of
Right.
situation.
And it's just plywood, scrapwood that he would find in his neighborhood, or or wood shops that couldn't use that wood anymore. So he just collected it all, and made these works.
To me, it feels violent, although
yeah,
maybe you feel it's calm. To me, it does feel very violent, like literally like if I was throwing something at the wall and that's what's left, like all the splodges everywhere. And
I mean, it's violent in a way, yes. But in some, that's why I'm not sure of the work. It feels like an explosion, but it also feels like an implosion to me.
Yeah, to me, like it feels like something in the middle is like attracting all of it,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
like floating, and there's like this cluster of things.
can't help think about a
Huge
black
wood
hole
magnet.
that sucks everything in.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
it needs
right.
to protect himself, or like to protect the fragility of his art practice.
Yeah, I see. I do like those kinds of works where it's one room dedicated to a work, because it lends it like almost slightly more like importance or
Yeah. And the
significance.
construction of the gallery is that you have a huge, so the front of the street is completely out of glass, and this is in the back.
Oh,
The room
okay,
is not
cool.
that big, so if you walk past, you would really see that work, besides the annoying column. But you could you can really see the work.
Are you
and
going
then,
to write to the gallery like, hey,
hey,
I love this work?
love it,
I'm
but
not an engineer.
what's the column, dude?
But could you destroy that column, please?
Yeah, please. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Do you
Give our podcast a listen if you want to know why I hate the column.
Next episode,
Next.
why Finn hates columns.
If we reach 1,000 likes, we will send an email to the gallery.
Yes.
People are going to be like, who cares?
So the whole petition. Yeah.
I do like the work. I like it. It's not like as direct in its messaging as
The other
in
two.
our part 1, which everyone should listen to, with
Like and subscribe.
like and subscribe, with Basquiat, which literally tells you what he's trying to say, and the other one which maybe sort of hints at different
Right.
things. It's, to me, like, if I didn't know anything about it, it would not strike me as something which is like by a particular artist, or like by a particular artist about his race, or like about circumstances or anything.
Mhm.
And sometimes with artwork, just like Christy said in a previous episode, that makes it like more intriguing, because you want to know like why is it this way, and what was the artist thinking, and it's not as like
Right.
black and white.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
my 2 cents.
Yeah, definitely. Like if I was a person who didn't know what this work was about, and I walk into the room, I'd be like, what is going on? I want to understand what made the artist do this,
Mhm.
because obviously it's pretty, in a way, site specific. You have to build it there. So like, I'm not sure where I'm going with it, but
No, but the site specific thing
Follow
is
your
a very
heart,
good thing, a very good point, because he makes works for airports. He made a public sculpture for Central Park where he kind of took down the Empire State Building. Well, he didn't took down the Empire State Building; it's still
Did them all-
standing.
They
But
built it back again when he was done.
he built a model of just the tip, and then he placed it in Central Park with like the little wooden blocks symbolizing the apartment buildings. And it was kind of a playground for children. It was very colorful and like so. He makes very site-specific.
What does
Explosions.
site-specific mean, Finn?
Site-specific means when an artist creates a work specifically for that place or that building or that public site. So it can be an airport, it can be a square, it can be a park, it can be anywhere.
I think this case
This-
is very clear why we would say this one is art specific because of the shape of the room
Mhm.
and how those two walls kind of go towards the same point at which the center of all that cluster of wood is. So it really gives it so much perspective if you stand in the middle of a room. It's a pity there's a column in the middle.
Don't get me started.
If you get in the middle of that room and there wasn't a column, it would probably give you the illusion that it's such a long distance and
Mhm.
such a huge mass of something in the distance. It's so good.
It really
Damn
reminds me of
column.
a car crash.
Car
Oh.
crash.
Like a
Right.
Hollywood-style car crash where all the bits just fly and there's slow
Yeah.
motion
Yeah.
going on and Neo dodging the bullets and
Who's Neo?
Or James Bond dodging.
Forgive
bullets.
Mara. She's a good girl, but she doesn't watch movies.
Good
She's a
girl.
good She's well behaved.
Yes,
I'm not a.
she's
I'm
a
not
nice
movie
human being, but she
person.
doesn't get references because she
Just
doesn't watch.
this human being is getting
If
better.
the references were Housewives, any reality TV show,
I mean, if you don't know
honestly, any
Neo, what are
trash,
you doing?
Desperate
Okay.
Housewives, whatever, I would be like, yeah, I get you. But you use these random.
Okay,
Random Neo, The Matrix. Come
press like. if
Oh
you know
my
who Neo
god!
is.
Let me tell you about The Matrix.
on.
I've watched it once. I don't know if there's more than one. I watched a movie. I watched The Matrix once.
There's 3 and about to be 4.
Okay, I
Oh,
was
right.
in primary school, so it was probably like 2004. And this boy was like, "We should watch it," and I was like, "Okay."
In primary school.
So I was on a play date, and I remember watching it and being like, and my mum was like in the other room, like with my friend's mum, and I was just thinking, like, when are we leaving? This is horrific. Like, what is this about? And I don't like these existential movies. They stress me out.
That's for another crack open a cold one episode of why Mara doesn't like culture.
Movies.
what my problem is?
Mara's problems with.
Culture.
Mara doesn't like movies.
But going back to that initial Matrix reference, it does seem like it seemed to me from the moment I first saw this installation that it has some element of sci-fi.
Yeah.
And now that you told me that that Leonardo was into, Marvel and DC, it kind of makes more sense to me that he would do something so. It looks like one of those like singularities in movies and books where there's like this like random gravity event. Like literally, when first time I saw it, I thought about Magneto just attracting all things, like stuff floating around him. And then Finn said he was into Marvel, and I was like, wow,
Who would have thought?
connection between me and Leonardo. But yeah, I think so. Going back to that first COVID episode, when we talked about how contemporary art is often not appreciated enough because it's not as aesthetically pleasing as classic art, and it goes to it tackles different things, and people who go into a contemporary art gallery thinking they're going to see Da Vinci's tend not to like what they see because it's not like this very like harmonious, like beautiful thing. In this case, I think everybody would like to be in that room with something so big and massive and spectacular. It's such a
Yeah.
huge thing that it probably is, even if you don't understand, if you don't want to like sit there and try to think what the artist means with this and try to find a deeper meaning, just to look at it, it's so spectacular that you would probably love it.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those where you go into the gallery and you want to spend a long while in the room, like
Yeah.
enjoying it because it's so like all encompassing.
Really nice artwork then.
Yeah, I
Good.
included it because I wanted to have to show that not all artists make or want to create reactions to like Basquiat did or like Lupaina made.
Yeah.
I mean,
Image.
they're not obliged to do that. They can still do
Yeah.
whatever they can still do whatever
Absolutely.
they want.
That's a very good point. Like, it's dangerous to label Black artists as artists who should only do,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, reactions to
Yeah.
their
reactions to political stuff. Yeah, they
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, I agree.
They can just do whatever they want.
Because there's also this idea to like, appeal to the Eurocentric art world that it's kind of the same with Chinese art or like Asian art, where there's an element of self-orientalism, but you don't necessarily have to always address your heritage because like it's so deeply embedded anyway. It is a part of you and a part of your identity that people from any culture can do any work that they want.
Okay,
Let's go to the last artwork.
Work. Okay,
The crib.
let's do this. So this is a work by Hugh Hayden. It's called Oreo, and it was made 2 years ago. I've renamed it Creepy Crib.
Yeah.
It's literally a dark wood crib without the bottom of it. And inside is like all these little white looking sharp teeth that are also made out of wood, but like have been carved out. So he's Dallas born, I think in the early 80s, and I think he studied to be an architect first. And all of his work is usually made out of wood. So this work in particular, which is called Oreo, is the name in itself is significant because Oreo is a offensive term to mean someone who is usually black but displays certain like mannerisms or has, let me try and say it in
Just
the
like
best
white
way.
traits.
Yeah, like white, maybe values, behaviors, that kind of thing, like that are white, and usually at the expense of their own culture, but it's an offensive term. But I thought this is like a good example of when the name of an artwork is like incredibly important in explaining what the context is, because there are so many untitled works or like, have a random word and that kind of thing. So he uses wood, which is also, I think it's from the border between Texas and Mexico. So he also is sort of having a discussion about this whole idea about borders and all the stuff that goes on in the US. I'm going to try and say it nicely. All the not so nice stuff that happens there. And also is commenting on this idea of like, land of opportunity and all, that anything is possible there and all that, whilst they are these very scary barriers. So in his work, he usually does like make an object out of wood which then appears to be something else. So very often it's like a chair or like a pushchair or everyday objects or like a table set with chairs where all like the roots are still growing out and it's slightly imperfect. So he's sort of commenting on that idea of like the like desire for a suburban middle class lifestyle that I think many people like aspire to. And I thought this artwork was interesting because of this idea of desiring a middle class life, and also the name reminded me of this Twitter thread where this woman was explaining that she had a new neighbor who has a son who's the exact same build and height and age as her own, but that this other family are black, and the mother of the other family was going around introducing her son to the neighbors to make sure that they would never think he is, you know, like in the horrific case recently in February of Maud Arbery, like would shoot him thinking he's an intruder, or, you know,
Right.
there on and this is activity, or that kind of thing. I don't know why this crib sort of reminded me of that, just because of this idea that he Maud Arbery had like gone running in a nice neighborhood, and it was the fact that people thought like, there's no way, you know, this guy's just going for a jog, he must be doing something dodgy, and ended up getting shot by a father and son who said something like, you know, there's been break-ins recently, but there was never any reports of any break-ins. Yeah, I thought it was a good artwork for what's going on at the moment, although it was made 2 years ago.
Yeah, I feel like the artwork kind of represents you have the crib, where if you look at it from the outside, you wouldn't see the little
Yeah, the
spiky
little
things.
teeth.
Yeah.
Right.
But in some way it could be a protection for like black
Yeah,
youth to
it's
not
like,
grow up or to not leave that crib.
it's like a comforting object, but that
Yeah.
is like terrifying on the
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
And it's sort of got like a double meaning where you're thinking of a certain like lifestyle or like comfort and home, but there is something like more sinister going on. I also then saw there was in one of the articles I was reading, they were mentioning a writer called Rashawn Ray, who had written a paper called Black People Don't Exercise in My Neighborhood, where he just discusses that in a middle class, like mainly white neighborhood, a black person who lives in that neighborhood would be less likely to go for a run there than they would if they're in a neighborhood with like cultural minorities, or a predominantly black neighborhood where they would actually feel safer. So I thought that was interesting too, because I think this the murder of George Floyd is so important that as Javier said, like he kind of becomes like the pinnacle, or like the icon for what is, for, you know, loads of other deaths, and then those names get forgotten. And I thought like this, the murder where, you know, Maud Arbery had got shot, it was so important in February when it happened, like it was all over social media, and
Right.
now it sort of feels like, oh, that was ages ago, but it wasn't. It was like a few months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just important just because of that whole idea of like, you know, someone just going on a run one day and, you know, being presumed that he's doing something.
Yeah, the work makes me feel uncomfortable as well.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's the symbol of kind of comfort and home, and
It's also
but it can
like
turn
saying
out really.
it's just, that's the only art, like it, the last time it was exhibited, that was the only artwork in the room.
Oh, okay.
That's even better.
Yeah, that's a really strong
Artistic
statement. Then.
purposes, yeah.
I mean, I don't have a lot to say about it. I think it's very strong on its own.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's kind of going back to what we were talking with Basquiat about how using children things.
Yeah.
It you know, the first thing you think when you see a crib is, oh, it's so innocent.
Cute.
Yeah. And then you see the spikes, and you're like, oh damn. It's like when you see Basquiat and
It's
you see
uncanny.
it's uncanny. It's like with Basquiat when you see this like children drawing, and then you realize it's just cops beating to death a black person, and like
Yeah.
this is such a gruesome and horrible thing, and it's painted with such naivety. It's
Right.
so shocking.
And it's also something we don't necessarily make that correlation very quickly of a crib and something dangerous. And I'm currently reading a book about parents that lost their child. And yes, and it was saying, okay, when somebody loses their husband or their wife, you become a widow. But like, what are you called as a parent when you lose your child? I mean, there is no name for that. Still, it's something so unnatural for the child to be in danger or to die first, and the parent. I don't know if that's related to this
Well,
whole
like,
conversation.
I also feel it's a bit like of a oxymoron in that, like, you try and protect your child, but there's like no way you could do that in this
Yeah.
object. Like, there is just no way.
Yeah.
But then it's also, as your child is growing up, you're looking at, you know, as a adult who understands the things going on in the world and like what things actually mean, you know, whereas when you're younger, it's like you don't really understand like race and why someone would be treated so differently to you. And it's like something you kind of like I see it all the time on social media. It's like something you learn as you grow up, like this idea of like different races being treated different kinds of ways.
Socialization.
Does it have to be with the head wobble?
It's a little dance, socialization.
Socialization of the infant.
So I think it was just an interesting work in that kind of like it's like a little bit, or like also like Javier's, it's like slightly, or it's aggressive as a work. This idea of like danger and something bad like unfolding in the work. But yeah, I liked this. He had loads of other works. He had a set, like a big table and a set of chairs that were all with the branches growing out of it. And he called that one America. And again, I think like all his works are the title is very important to explaining like what he's trying to do. I like that when the title gives you like a little helping hand in like understanding what it is that you're looking at.
Yeah.
I don't like untitled.
Always fun when they call it untitled.
Yeah, it angers me so much. At the same time, I'm like, I kind of see what you're doing, but
no.
The thing is that I think with untitled works, it really depends on what work it is. I guess sometimes some works work best without a title, but then if an artist kept on untitling their works, it just gets really messy.
Yeah.
But what does it mean when a work is untitled and then in brackets it puts a name? Do you know what I mean? It will go like untitled number 3.
We should answer these questions in an episode about untitled artworks.
Well, I don't know.
Yes.
That'd be so cool. That'd be awesome.
Why we hate.
Leave a like if you want us to do.
Yeah.
Not that why we hate, but like we should just talk about
like why we hate.
We all have episodes of things we hate. The column, the untitled works.
You can hate something, but it's good to understand it. So that's why we need an episode about this.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's
like and
important
subscribe.
to understand why you hate something.
Exactly.
Right.
It's an informed hatred.
Hateness, yes.
Well, I guess if we don't have much more to say, we can end it here.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it. If you especially loved our episode, we would love it if you gave it a 5-star rating and a review, and even consider taking a screenshot of this episode and posting it on your Instagram stories. That way we know that you loved it and other people can find our podcast as well. If you're not subscribed yet, again, what are you doing? Subscribe and get notified every time we publish a new episode. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at chART Podcast, and if you want to see our faces while we talk, find us on YouTube at chART Podcast as well. We are chART, and we'll hope we'll meet you again at some point in the near future. Take care, chART out.
Love you.
See you.
Love
See you
you.
later.
Bye. Bye. Watch The Matrix.
Watch The Matrix.
Don't be like Mara.
Fucking The
Watch The
Matrix.
Matrix.